Getting faster at the CFOP method means thinking of the cross as being one step, instead of inserting 4 edge pieces one by one. And while this is an intuitive process, there are still a lot of tips I can give you to get to the optimal cross solution, or in other words, the solution with the fewest amount of moves. Now before we start, there are 2 rules when it comes to solving the cross. Always solve the cross at the bottom. Now we do this so that transition to F2L, or the first 2 layer, becomes easier. And rule number 2 is to never rotate while building the cross. Now it may be tempting to just rotate to insert a piece, but you should be able to deal with all pieces from one position of the cube. Tip number 1. Knowing the stats. What is the optimal cross solution? There's this well-known stat which states that the cross can always be solved in 8 moves or fewer. And while this is true, 8 move crosses are extremely rare. Now a more useful stat is that the cross takes an average of 5.8 moves to solve, and 95% of the time it will be in between 5 to 7 moves. And although this sets a good standard, don't be too fixed on that, since move count isn't the only thing that matters, as you will see later in the video. Tip number 2. Align the cross at the end. When you're starting out, you would put each edge piece in their correct spot and then solve pieces one by one. This is bad. However, if you look at pieces in relation to each other, for example right here, red is left of green, the same as it is on the centers, red left of green, you can just solve pieces in their correct position. For example, blue right here should be to the left of red. So we can just insert blue in that position, realign the cross, and solve the last piece. One way you will use this a lot is by using the move over technique for edges in the middle layer. Right here we have 3 cross pieces solved relative to each other, but this cross piece needs to be right here. So instead of taking it out and aligning it to solve it, we can move the spot where it needs to go underneath the cross piece, insert it, and then bring it back. Number 3. Dealing with bad edges. One crucial aspect in finding the optimal cross solution is being able to identify and deal with bad edges. Now, what are bad edges? Well, whenever you have a cross piece in a top or bottom layer that is flipped in place, in other words, where white doesn't touch yellow or white doesn't touch white, those are bad edges. Now, the reason they're bad edges is that for all the other edge pieces, for example, any piece in the middle layer, you can bring to the white center in one move. This one as well, one move. But for flipped edges, it always requires 2 moves. For example, this one right here, we have to bring in the middle layer and then down. Same for this piece, 1, 2. The first way to deal with bad edges we'll call the drag down technique. What it simply means is while inserting an edge piece in the middle layer, we can place a bad edge on top of the center, and if we now bring it down, that piece will be in the middle layer, ready to be inserted. Now ideally, you want to solve both pieces to their relative position, like I'm showing right here. But even if you cannot do that, for example these 2 edges, it is still a good idea to bring it to the middle layer and use the move over technique. However, this bad green edge right here we can solve together with the red piece by putting on top of it, bringing it to the green center, inserting it, and then bringing red down. Now this is also true for edges in the bottom layer. We have a flipped edge right here and this green piece is in the middle layer. If we put it below the green piece, once we insert green, red gets pushed in the middle layer. Just like that. And point 4 is sledging in bad edges from every angle. Although you want to deal with bad edges early on, it is inevitable that sometimes you will end up with one bad edge in a top layer. Luckily, we can solve these really fast. When it's to the right, we can sledge it in like this. And just to show you how fast it is, we can do the same on the left side. And when you need to insert it in the back, you can finger trick it like this. And this is also really fast. However, having one cross piece flipped in its own place is something you should avoid at all costs, because the way to deal with them isn't that great. You would bring it to the middle layer and then use the move over technique to solve it in its own spot again. Tip 5. The replacement technique. Right here we have these 3 cross pieces, but blue is in the wrong spot because it shouldn't be to the right of red. The way we can deal with this is replacing the blue edge with the correct piece, the green edge, by moving the spot where it needs to go over, replacing blue by green, which pushes the blue piece in the middle layer. If we then align the cross, we can solve the blue piece. So here's another example. We have these 3 cross pieces. These 2 are relative to each other, but this one isn't. So instead of doing this and then putting this one in the correct position, what we can do instead is replacing this piece by the correct piece right here. If we do that, this one will be in the middle layer, so we can put this one opposite, insert the red piece into its position and realign the cross. You can also do this when two cross pieces are flipped. We would bring this one to the middle layer, replace this piece by the red piece, then realign the cross and insert the green piece. Number 6. The opposite edge trick. One situation that you'll often find is when you have a cross piece connected to its opposite center. We could just use the move over technique by doing a D2, inserting it and bringing it back. But there's an alternative way to solve it, which is by bringing it all the way to the correct center and then just inserting it. Now this is ideal for when you can insert two pieces at once. For example, if we combine that by putting green right here, which solves the piece and connects red to the correct center. This was a win-win situation. Tip 7. Predict the entire cross solution. Ideally, you don't want to think about your cross solution when you're solving it. This means you have to predict the entire cross solution during your inspection time. Now this is extremely difficult in the beginning, but you will get better at it. As you can see right now, I'm scrambling the cube. I can obviously not track what I'm doing. And let's see, this is a bad cross, but even then, I can inspect it in just a few seconds. Now this is extremely hard in the beginning, so you don't have to break your head every time you give yourself a scramble. Now instead you want to work your way up. Give yourself a scramble and try to predict as much as you can from the cross. So I have cross pieces here, 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 and right here. Now this isn't a great cross, so let's just try to predict two edge pieces. Now I notice that this green piece is opposite to the center, and by inserting this bad edge above green, red would get connected to orange. So if I insert both pieces, I'll just do a D2 and I solve two pieces. So let's close our eyes. And let's see, we solve both pieces. If you do this a lot, you can start adding a third edge and eventually a fourth edge. And if you get really good at this, you can try doing this under 15 seconds of inspection time until you can inspect the entire cross just like it's nothing. And number 8. The shortest solution isn't always the fastest. But Cupid, I thought we always wanted to find the optimal solution. Yes, you want to be able to do that. But as you get better at this, you can start adding moves, that's right, to make execution faster. For example, when we want to insert this last cross piece in the back, instead of putting it in the back, regripping, doing a B2 and regripping back, it can be faster to just do a D move, inserting it and moving the cross back. Another example right here is when we have to insert this flipped edge to the left. Now instead of doing something like this, which isn't that bad, I find it easier to move the spot where it needs to go right here, sledging the piece in and bringing the cross back. Now although this is an extra move, it can generally be done faster than inserting it to the left side. Finding the ideal finger tricks will come natural after a lot of practice, but right now you shouldn't focus on it too much, since we'll have an entire video on that in advanced CFOP. Tip number 9. Be color neutral. Imagine that for every scramble you have 6 crosses to choose from. For example right here, white doesn't look ideal because we don't have a single edge piece around the cross. But if you look at green, we have 3 cross pieces solved in their relative position. So we only need to insert this one and realign the cross. However, you can also be dual color neutral, which means being able to solve on white and on yellow. This is much easier because your F2L pieces will have the same colors. And if you would ever get a horrible cross like this white cross, you can always check yellow to see if it is easier. And in this case, yup. And the last tip is to experiment a lot. The more you've experimented with the cross, the more you'll see different ways to deal with the same cases. For example, in this cross where you have these 2 pieces solved and we want to solve these 2 edges right here, there's 2 ways to get to a 4-move solution. The first one is pretty straightforward. We align these 2 pieces and insert this edge while solving the green edge. But when you get more experienced, you'll also notice that you can put the red edge in the back, align green, and when you solve it, red gets attached to the correct center, which is the second way to go about it. Now a good way to think of more solutions is by watching cross examples. And as fate has it, I have 10 cross examples right here, and if you want to test your cross skills, you might want to do this fun challenge right here. I hope you learned something in this video, and I will see you in the next one. That was really bad. Let's see if we can redeem ourselves with the last layer. And we didn't. Ciao guys.